Okay, so we are going to make hand warmers, and here is 2 that I've already made. So they're literally just crochet a square, or if you want it longer, like this one here, which when I put on goes up my wrist a little bit more, and this one when I put it on is short. So it's up to you if you want to make it a long one. It can go all the way up to your elbow if you want to, but it's literally just crocheting a square or a rectangle, and we fold it in half. We sew from the top down. We will sew it and stop, and then we leave a gap for our thumb, and we can sew from the bottom up, and you will have wrist warmers or hand warmers, whichever you call them. Now for this I use, should write down, we make a slip knot, we use the chain stitch, and we use half double crochet. We're also going to be using chunky yarn, any colour you like, and I'm using a 6mm crochet hook. So 6 crochet hook. Now I have scissors for cutting the yarn as I need it, and I have stitch markers, so I can mark off the first stitch and the last stitch of each row. And I think I will use 2. I think I'll use 1 pink, and I'll use green. Now, excuse the dogs, they bark at everything. Now, for our hand warmers, we will make a chain, and the chain has to fit around this part of your hand, and everybody's hand is a different size. You could have 20 people in a room and they're all going to have different sized hands. So what we do is we are going to make a chain to make it fit around there, sort of across our knuckles and across the pads of our hands. So let's get started. So I also want to leave a tail for sewing. Now we will start off by making a slip knot. So how I make my slip knot is I pinch my yarn, that's the tail part, the bit that's still attached to the ball. I wrap it around the front of my thumb, behind my thumb, and back across the front of my thumb, and it'll make a little cross. I then pull the top, or an X. I pull the top down over the bottom, and then I grab the bottom bit and I pull it, and I have a little slip knot. Now, to make our chain, make sure you're not making your chains with the tail end. I have done that lots of times. So now we hold our yarn over our little finger, under our middle two, over our first finger. Turn your hand around and pinch your work just below your stitch. Now we're going to chain. So we're grabbing the yarn from the front, we're hooking it and turning the hook down, and we're pulling through the stitch. We'll do it again. we're hooking it and we're pulling it through, turning it down and pulling it through the stitch. And we can move our middle finger and thumb up to keep a hold of the stitches. And it makes it easier, because if you have a long chain and you're trying to do that, it's going to get all wobbly and you'll get frustrated. So the easiest way to do it is to just hold your stitches underneath your loop that's on the hook. So we are going to chain. I'm going to chain 20 and see how I go. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now I'll see if that fits around my hand. I don't think it will, so we will have a little look, see. Not quite. I will do 4 more. I'll see how that works. So it's 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and sure we'll go 25 and we'll just see. Oh, I'll just put that there, pinch it so that it's not going to go anywhere. Put it across my knuckles. Now don't stretch it, you just want it to be just loose but not too loose. So this just is right. So that was 25 stitches. It's 25 chains that I have done. So when you do that, write down how many chains you chained. So I did 25. Now I also want a turning chain, so I need to add 1 more. And that means when you go to make your second hand warmer, you don't have to worry about measuring it on your wrist again. You already know how many stitches you need to chain and your +1, which is brilliant. So our +1 is for our turning chain. So I'd better make me +1 or I'll have it forgotten about. Now +1. So now we are going to half double in each stitch all the way across. So remember, when we're half doubling, we are going to skip the first chain and we're going to go into the next chain. So here's our first chain that we did, or the last chain that we did, and this is the one after it. So this is the one that we want to go in. And for our half double crochet, we are going to yarn over, and remember, don't turn your hand or the chain to get it in, because you're going to end up losing your yarn over. So leave your chain like this, you are looking at it, and you're going to move your crochet hook. So we have yarned over, and now we're going to move our crochet hook into the chain, and we're going to come up from behind the yarn and we're going to hook it, and we're going to pull it through the stitch, and we have 3 loops on our hook. So now, and we don't want them too tight, so you can use your thumb and your middle finger to give it a little wiggle, and make sure you don't have like a deck grip holding on to your yarn here, because it's not going to flow through your hand like it should, which means your stitches are going to be really tight. You want it, don't scrunch your hands down at all. Leave the palm of your hand, your 2 last fingers up like your first finger, and you're only using your middle finger and your thumb to hold your work just underneath the stitches, and you can pull them down ever so slightly to make sure that these are loose and not too tight. So we have our 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over from the front, yarn over, and you're going to remember to turn your hook down so it's facing down, which means it'll be easier to go through all the stitches. And that is our first half double crochet stitch off the row. Now you want to get your stitch marker, and you're going to put it into that very first stitch. So you're going to pop it through the top 2 loops of the stitch. Close it. Now, if you don't have stitch markers, you can get a different color piece of yarn. And let's see, we have red, so that's attached to something. Let's go with yellow that isn't attached to anything, so we can snip that. And if you don't have a stitch marker, you can just put that through, and you know then this is where your last stitch is, or your very first stitch of the row, which is handy to do. Okay, now let's make our next half double crochet. So this was where our first stitch went into, so this is where our next stitch is going to go into. Okay, so remember to yarn over, and remember, do not move this hand, move your crochet hook, and this hand only. So we yarn over, and we're going to turn our crochet hook down, and we're going to push it through the next stitch. We're going to grab our yarn, bring it through the stitch, and we have 1, 2, 3 on our hook. So now we yarn over, and we pull through all 3 stitches. So now we have 2. So sometimes when we make our half double crochet, the next stitch may get a little bit squashed looking, and you skip it and go into the next one after that. So you can always pull your work a little bit and use your crochet hook to go into the stitch first, so you know where it is, and it makes it easier then for when you have to go into it. So we yarn over, we go into our stitch, we grab our yarn, we bring it through, and we can give it a little wiggle if we want to make sure it's not too tight. 1, 2, 3. We yarn over, and if you get it hard to pull through all 3 stitches at the same time, you can do one at a time. So you can pull through the first one, turn your hook back down and pull through the next one, and then pull through the third one. And you know you've pulled through all the stitches when you only have 1 loop left on your hook, and you should be able to make a really big loop with it if you want. If you can't, you either still have a loop, one of your loops left on the hook with that, or you have maybe brought in one of the other loops by mistake. Okay, so our next one is this. I will show you how you can end up with an extra loop on your hook with this one. So we yarn over, we go into the stitch, we grab our yarn, we bring it through. And sometimes when you come through like this, you just keep going. And you think you've made your half double, but you haven't. You've just kept going. Now, sometimes people do that by mistake, which is grand because everybody has to learn. then sometimes you can do your yarn over, or you lose your yarn over and you go in and you think you have one, and some people tend to twist the yarn around the hook, or to go in the wrong way like this and twist it, which is making work for themselves, and they think that they have done everything right, and now they're trying to do this, and it's all getting bunched up, and you end up then with something like this on your hook. So you need to just be a little bit careful and do it slowly. You don't have to rush to get from one side to the next side. If you do it slowly, you will get it. So here's our stitch that is now giant because we've gone into it a few times, doing all the wrong stitches. So we yarn over, we go into our stitch, we grab our yarn, bring it through. We have 3 loops on our hook, so we yarn over and we're going to pull through all 3. Now, as you can see, this one here, you can really see it, and this one here looks a little bit flat. So you think like, oh, well, obviously that's not the stitch, and you skip it. But if you just go into it with your crochet hook, it loosens it up again, and you know you can go into that one. So we yarn over and we shall go in, grab some yarn, bring it through, yarn over and pull through all 3. Now we're going to keep doing this all the way down to the bottom. And the more you practice, the better you will get. So, and the neater your stitches will become. When you're starting out crocheting first, sometimes your stitches can be a little bit loose or a little bit tight, and you might get frustrated with yourself when it's not coming out the way the person in the video is doing it, or the person maybe sitting next to you is doing it. So just take your time. Here now. I don't know where that came out of. Take your time doing the stitches. And if it doesn't look right and you're not happy with it, you can always unravel it and start again. You don't have to keep looking at it and seeing that it's a mess and going like, oh, I have to keep going. You can start again. That's one of the best things about crochet, is you can unravel it and redo it again, and it's not the end of the world. Now we are here and we're coming almost to the end. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left. So when we come to the end, so 1 stitch left, and this is the end. Now I am going to count the stitches to make sure I actually have 25, and I didn't miscount. So as you can see, this here was our first stitch. Now you can see that it is kind of slanting there at the side, so you would, especially as a beginner, forget, and even a not so beginner can forget to go into that stitch. So this is our very first one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Phew! So this is our last stitch. So where's my stitch marker? Here. I'm just going to pop it in here so you can see that I put the stitch marker here. So I've got one in my very first stitch that I did, and one in my very last stitch that I did. So that is one row completed. So you can also keep a track of how many rows that you are doing. So when you make your second one, you don't have to keep checking and measuring. You can just do the exact same number of rows. So I'll just write down here 1. Now let's go on to row 2. Now each row is done the exact same way. When we reach the end of a row, we chain 1, which is, as you remember, we added 1 extra chain, and that is our turning chain. So we chain, I'll just do that chain 1 again. So we chain 1, we're going to turn our work, and because our stitch marker is here, we know that this is going to be the first stitch of this row. So we can yarn over, and now we're working, because we have done our half double row now. When we were working in the chain, we were only going into 1 stitch. Now that we have our half double done, you see here that there is a front loop and there is a back loop. And when we're working into this row now, we are going to make sure that we want to go into both our loops, not just one loop. We need to go into both of them, which is important. So we've chained 1, turn my work, yarn over, and we are going into, I'll just hold my stitch marker down. So you are going into, I'll just turn this slightly so you can see the front loop and the back loop. We are going to go into, push our hook into both. So you can see that it's gone into both of the loops. Okay. We grab our yarn the same as before. We pull it through. We have our 3 loops on our hook. We yarn over and we're going to pull through every one of them again. So this is the same stitch for each row until we have finished. Now we'll take out our stitch marker. And this is important to make sure you do this at the start and end of every row, because it helps you keep track of where the start and the end of the row is. And so you don't get confused. So we will pop our stitch marker in here. And now we will continue on to the other stitch marker. So here is our next stitch. And the same again, we yarn. And remember, like, you're using your thumb and your finger to hold your work. You don't have to hold it all the way down there, because this is going to be so floppy and you're not going to be able to do your crochet. So if you hold it just there under where you're going to put your hook, just there, and like, if you look, you can actually see the hole. Now you can't, sometimes you can't, sometimes you can. So we yarn over, we go in there, we grab our yarn, bring it through, and then we yarn over and pull through all 3. So that's our second one. So we are going to keep doing that until we come to the end of the row. And you don't have to rush doing this. Remember that. That is important. To take your time going into each stitch. make each movement slow. Now I nearly got caught there. And if you find that it is a little bit tight, you could be pulling your stitches too tight. Make sure you don't have a death grip on it, like I do tell them. Like some of them hold it like this, and it's like this, and everything is going really, really tight. And they're struggling then to, you know, this bit here isn't flowing and it's really tight. Like especially if they have it wrapped around their little finger twice, which means then that it's going to be really tight and then it's not going to come out. So see, I can't pull that. So when I go in there, everything is starting to get tight. See, this is getting tight now. And so then I'm here, this first stitch is really tight. So when I do this, I can't get the crochet hook through it. And when that happens, then you're getting really frustrated with yourself. So if that happens and when you pull down it's not getting any loose, loosen it off your hand. Okay, put it back over your finger, under your middle toe, over your first finger, and leave all your hand loose. Don't have it all like you're going to start fighting. And then you can make sure everything is loose and you can make your stitch. And if you make your stitches really tight, you won't get your crochet hook through the stitches either. Now, some people do have really, really tight tension, and tight tension is, well, tension in crochet is if you crochet really loose or really tight or just kind of in the middle. I know I'm kind of just in the middle. Some of my students would crochet quite tightly. Some of my friends crochet quite tightly. My daughter crochets tightly, but not as tight as she used to do. She has learned to crochet a little bit looser. But still, we could crochet with the exact same yarn, the exact same size crochet hooks, and her work is going to come out a little bit smaller than mine because her tension is tighter. So practicing will help with your tension, and not having a death grip on your yarn helps too. So now we are almost here at the end. So now, this is the importance of a stitch marker. You think you have reached the end here, but we have a stitch marker there. So we know that this is our last stitch. So if we turn it over slightly, you can see that here is the front loop of the stitch and here is the back loop of the stitch. So we know we have to go into that last stitch. So we will just go in there, grab our yarn, bring it through, yarn over, and we're going to pull through. And now when you look now, you can see that actually looks like, that looks better. If we didn't have that, then it's going to start going up, 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 and you're going to have like a little triangle. And we don't want that because our hands are not in a triangle shape. And of course we move our stitch marker again. Here. So we know that this is the first stitch of the next round and the last stitch of that round. So, and that is, we better mark that on our piece of paper, 2. So that is 2 rows done. Now, I'll let you get on with it. and come back when I have all my rows done, and I will show you how to finish it off.